Okay, good, good, good. We're not nervous at all to start this session. We have uh, Professor Stephen Krashen with us, and I have like a 3-page introduction that I'm going to read through right now. Or, I mean, I've been thinking about how do you introduce Michael Jordan if you were me, and I think the guy does not need so much introduction. Professor Stephen Krashen, who's taught me about the difference between language acquisition, and language learning, and has, I think, validated a lot of what I've what I've learned growing up that I did not know about, but I did, I think, correctly, and that I am now doing for my own kids. So thank you, thank you, thank you for everything that you've done to me without ever realizing. Professor Krashen, we're going to have to call you Steve. I know that's how you prefer. So although I feel like you're somebody at the top of the clouds, like we say in Japanese, but we will call you Steve. And let's get things going. Professor Krashen, Stephen
Let me
Krashen.
tell you about the first name, last name, doctor stuff.
Okay.
Not because I'm such a nice guy, okay? It's because I am not the real Dr. Krashen. And it makes me nervous when people say Dr. Krashen. The real Dr. Krashen is our son. Believe it or not, he's a professor of mathematics. Can you believe that? Oh my God. When I
Where
grew
did
up,
you go wrong?
oh my God, my goodness. When I grew up, I want to be like him. I am a pale reflection. So Steve is that makes me more comfortable. So great.
That's
Uh,
fantastic.
I want to start out by telling you how this all began. Oh, no, big question first. Why are those shelves empty?
It is
I want
indeed.
to know that. Okay, what's going on? Um,
Mhm.
the reason is that people my age, the shelves become more and more empty as the kids leave home and we want to clear out our houses and move into someplace smaller. So we're anticipating all that will happen for a while, but that's the reason. And I feel a connection to the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson donated his entire book collection to the Library of Congress when the British destroyed it in one of those wars, okay? And he donated $6,000 worth of books. That's what I've done. I
Wow.
have donated that much to local libraries. You know all about this. That's how many books you have, okay? That you're going to have to get rid of. And little by little, that's where they are. So that's why the shelves are empty. And thanks to digital stuff, it's easy to replace. Okay,
What a
the
great
first,
story to start.
yeah. First question I want to talk about is what Tetsu recommended, which is a very good question. He said, "Tell us about your background, how you became passionate about languages." Great question. Never talked about this before.
Really?
It happened when I was 20 years old. When I was 20, my mother, who did so many wonderful things for me, decided I needed to go to Europe. I grew up in the Midwest in Chicago. And she said, "You need some more experience in the world." And she registered me with a group called Youth Hostels, this is for middle class privileged kids. And you find a group, they put you together with a group of about 9 other teenagers your age, give you a guide, an older person, maybe 3 years older, and you bicycle through Europe. One of the people on the tour was the son of a famous actor, John Lahr, who was in The Wizard of Oz. And Bert Lahr, son was John Lahr. He was wonderful. We had a great time the whole trip. Well, here's what happened. We had bicycled through London, England, uh, down into France, and wound up in Switzerland. And the group decided one day to go on a hike in one of the mountains, which I thought was a really boring idea. And I stayed back. The night before, there was a big party in one of the youth hostels. That party was it. A bunch of really friendly teenage kids getting to know each other. The group I was with were my friends I traveled with and some of the local kids. One of them was a young man who was talking to each person in their own language. He was talking to someone in French, someone in German. He would speak to us in English. I had never heard that before. I thought that was the coolest thing I had ever seen. And the next day, when the rest of the kids were climbing a mountain, I was busy planning how to become a polyglot because I wanted to be like this guy. All right. So interesting. Yes. When the tour was over, I went to Paris. We had, a couple of weeks off. I went to the Alliance Française and I signed up for French class. Okay. I had French in high school. I had 2 years of French. And after 2 years, my instructor met with me and said, I'm going to give you a passing grade of C right in the middle, under the condition that you never study French again, because it would look bad on me because you were terrible. And it was true. I didn't care. It was all grammar, grammar, grammar. Anyway, that changed it. Those 2 weeks in Paris, I made some friends. The classes were taught, grammar, but they were in French and they were easy and they were comprehensible. And that hasn't stopped. Since then, it seems normal and easy and wonderful to be always working on languages, the same thrill that I got in Paris. The next thing that happened to me, I got interested in music. My undergraduate major was music history. And I took a year off and went to Vienna to study piano. Okay. My teacher, Malcolm Bilson, well-known pianist, sent me to study with his teacher, Frau Hinterhofer. And the thing about her is that the Nazis thought she was Jewish. Well, my name is Hinterhofer. Well, you could have changed it. If I'd have changed it, it wouldn't be Hinterhofer, it would be Vorhofer, Anyway.
Zwischenhofer.
She and I had what we call an Auseinandersetzung. We had a problem. And I gave up on piano. I stayed in Vienna, did more language, practiced the piano, got pretty good in German. So that experience with French, the experience with German, after that, Peace Corps. And that was when I had my first cup of coffee, which changed my life. I taught in Ethiopia. 3 good things happened. I had my first cup of coffee. I met my wife after 55 years. We're still married, still doing great. Okay. And I learned to speak Amharic, the Ethiopian language, which is a Semitic language, and had a wonderful time. Since then, it's been language after language, always working on something. I want to ease into another anecdote, which is really the theme of my discussion today. During the quarantine, I've been home. Again, I tell people I'm home with my girlfriend. Okay. We're having a great time. It's wonderful. And I've been doing several things. Of course, I've been practicing the piano. As you can tell, I've been pumping iron. Okay. And I've been working on my languages. I've been working mostly with Spanish because that's what's here. Every Friday morning, I do the family shopping because the local supermarket is open very early, 6:30, for old people only. And that's me. Okay. 65 and older. 65 seems really young to me now. So the first day I was there, I had made some progress with Spanish. I was kind of intermediate. Okay. And the first day I bought my groceries and I was in line, and the checkout clerk had his name there, and it was Fidel. And I had heard him speak Spanish already. So, of course, I spoke to him in Spanish. He answered in English, which is what you're supposed to do. And I was ready. All right. Now I'm going to show off. Okay. I said, Fidel, tú puedes ayudarme. You can help me. Mi meta es hablar español como ustedes. I want to speak Spanish the way you do, the way Mexicans do. He loved it. Fidel and I have been buddies for the last year and a half. I was there yesterday, and he was in another line or so checking out. We waved, said hello, how are you doing? ¿Qué paso? That kind of thing. And he's bragged to his friends that he knows me, and I know all these languages because I show off all the time. So this is what I'm getting better. Here's how I know. There's going to be a surprise ending to the story. Here's how I know I'm getting better. He's talking more quickly. There's more gossip, more chalar. Who was it who said, if you don't have something good to say about someone, come sit next to me? That's basically what we've been doing. So he's talking more complicated, more quickly. I'm getting better, but not because I'm talking to Fidel. We only talk for like less than a minute a week because he's got work, other customers. I've been reading. I've been reading lots and lots of easy Spanish, taking the advice of my colleague Benico Mason, who has a whole method of reading lots of easy books. I've been reading graded readers in Spanish. I found a couple of authors I really, really like, where their simplified books are actually good literature. If you're interested in Spanish, Adriana Ramirez, oh my, and Bill Van Patten, who's one of us in research, who writes these and they're absolutely wonderful books. I read them all the time. That's why I'm getting better. And that's the theme of my talk.
Wow.
And that's been the breakthrough in the last decade and more, is lots and lots of reading of things you really, really want to read.
So it really sounds to me like a story that Steve Kaufman, our common friend, would say. I think you're just going more and more into it as time goes on. You only started when you're in your 20s. I think Steve Kaufman was the same thing. So I see all the parallels of amazing.
Kaufman has been terrific. And that conference where I met you, that was
Indeed.
Really phenomenal. He said things that I still think about all the time. Believe that you are born to acquire language, that it's something natural. Okay. Kaufman, by the way, knows about the usual, polyglot, amazing things, 15, 17 languages, 6 of them after age 62. Is that wonderful or what? And I have been with him, watching him with these languages. It's been amazing. I attended a talk that came from Quebec. It was about my favorite topic, Steve Krashen's theory of language acquisition. And it was given in French. And Steve was in the audience and raised questions and sounded absolutely wonderful. He and I have been together in Spanish-speaking restaurants, and he's done just great. At ACFL one year, my Chinese teacher was there. We all went to lunch, him and his friends. They were astonished at how good his Chinese was. So this
Indeed.
really does work. It's great to know people like that.
I can attest. And as much as I want us to just go with the flow, I want to sort of put a little pause here to acknowledge all our viewers. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter. So we've got comments coming in. I'm just going to run them through really quickly. Some Happy New Year's, some smiley faces. Thank you for this exceptional chance. We've got, hi, Dr. Stephen Krashen from Alejita. And perhaps this.
Hey, Eddie. Oh, my goodness. Good to see you. Wow. Okay.
We've got lots of people greeting from Dubai. Interesting. All right. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we're going to go right along to our next topic and actually sort of go into the meat and potato, so to speak. So I learned for the first time from you about language acquisition and language learning. And it's really transformed the way that I see how language learning, the common way we say language learning takes place. And lots of things that I've done before when I was young, some things that work, some things that don't work, make perfect sense. One example is I learned to speak Spanish to a fluent level through comprehensive input. I didn't even know I was doing it. I just read tons and tons of stuff because I had lots of friends from South America and through traveling, etc. I was just genuinely interested. So please tell, I guess, our audience, this is sort of a summary. What exactly is the difference between language acquisition, language learning, and especially put it into context for within raising bilingual, multilingual children? That's the thing that we're most interested in right now.
Yes, this is the hypothesis that's dominated my life. Oh gosh, for 45 years now. We think people have 2 different ways of getting better in a language, and they really are different. One we call the natural way. Synonym is picking up a language. I was in Spain for a couple of weeks and I picked up some Spanish, that really means you acquired it. It happens subconsciously. While it's happening, you don't know it's happening. Once you finished acquiring, you don't know that it's there. You have a feeling for correctness, okay? The other process, and we're very good at it. We're extremely good at language acquisition. The other process we're not very good at, language learning. Language learning is knowing about language, knowing the rules. The noun, the subject, and the verb are supposed to agree. Phonics, two vowels go walking, the first does the talking. The difference between ser and estar, which I still do not know the rule for after all this time. Okay. The third person singular rule, etc. We're not very good at this. This is what our instruction is based on, and this is why we have so much suffering. I thought it was original with me, but it turns out it wasn't, which is actually very gratifying that it's not original with me. After I started talking about it, I discovered other people had similar ideas. Pitt Corder had talked about it in our field. Larry Selinker had actually talked about it in our field. And in other related fields, widely known, one of the great intellectual moments of my life is when I picked up a book by Frank Smith called Reading Without Nonsense. And it's about learning to read. And I picked it up. I read it in one sitting. There it was, my entire theory, all of it, based on different data that I hadn't seen for learning to read as a first language, and beautifully expressed, well put together. This was so gratifying. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, when you come to a hypothesis and you get evidence, you replicate and you get evidence from a neighboring field, that is really powerful. So that is not original with me. And that was one of the most exciting, happy days of my life when that happened. We have found it works in the beginning. It turned out it explained a lot in foreign language teaching, of course, in second language teaching, in literacy. It applies very well to bilingual education. If you use the first language correctly, it makes the second language more comprehensible. It works for heritage language development. The best way to get your heritage language moving is lots and lots of input, lots of pleasure reading, etc. So this is the way it's been. It's been research coming surprise from other directions that confirms it again and again. So this is the big one. I know of these days, I know of no counter evidence. So I'm not going to say it's true. I'm going to say so far, there's no counter evidence. Karl Popper says, I'm going to complain now. Karl Popper says in science, you can't prove anything. You can only get supporting evidence. Someone can always say, you haven't looked at all the possible cases. So if you say all languages have pronouns, well, maybe there's a language that hasn't been evolved yet. Maybe there's Proto-Etruscan that we don't know what it looked like. So you can't, there's always some wise guy in the back who says, well, maybe next year there'll be a counter. Oh, maybe. Okay. But so far it looks good. And we're getting this evidence from other fields, which makes me think it's the one we want to work with and continue to test. So that's acquisition learning. They're very different. I am not opposed to learning. I would never say to teachers, don't ever teach about language. Don't ever explain the rules. Don't ever correct errors. Error correction is an invitation to think the rules again, okay? I would never say, teach grammar, go to jail, okay? What I will say, though, about conscious learning, it's very hard to do and very hard to use. It's limited. I'm not saying it's wrong. For people like us, it can be very satisfying. When you acquire something, then you learn the rule and it makes you feel good. So it's not bad. And there are strange, deviant people like me and some of you who actually think grammar is interesting, who think that Noam Chomsky is one of the great geniuses of all time, which is what I think, okay? And when I read his descriptions, oh gosh, gorgeous. But you don't have to be like that, Okay. For people like us, it feels wonderful. So here's why it's hard grammar. There are three conditions that have to be met if you want to use grammar, use a rule that you've learned. Number one, you've got to know the rule.
Mhm.
Know all the rules, not even close. Even Chomsky, now Noam Chomsky knows more about English than anyone who's ever lived
The other.
because his task is to discover universals, and one of his ways of working is to get the right description of any language. And then it's you probably are using universal grammar when you do that. And he's not done. He and his colleagues say we've only described fragments. Chomsky doesn't know all the rules. The linguists don't know all the rules. The best language teachers don't know all the rules. They don't teach all the rules they know. Our best students don't learn all the rules. So this is hopeless. Okay, that's number one. You've got to know the rules if you're going to use language. Number two, you've got to be thinking about correctness if you're going to use the rules. Let's say you're having a conversation and you make a change because you think you're going to do it wrong. You've got to be thinking about correctness. When you do that, you're not listening to the other person. It's true confession time. You guys do this, and I used to do it all the time.
All the time.
Plan your sentence while the other person's talking. You come up with this brilliant sentence, but you weren't listening. And the conversation's now in a different direction.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got to have time to do it. And you've got to be thinking about forms. You got to know the rule. You got to be thinking about rules, and you got to have time. The only time these conditions are met is when you take a grammar test. It doesn't happen in the real world. It only happens when we take a grammar test. You've studied the rule, you're thinking about correctness, and usually the written test, you have time to think about the rule. Okay. Our study is done back in the 80s. Even when these conditions are met, people don't use a lot of grammar. So again, I'm not against it, but I think we have to recognize its limitations. I started really thinking about this when I was in Cuernavaca, and I had 2 weeks hanging out with Spanish teachers. Okay. We had lunch and dinner together. We had a good time. It was wonderful. And I made the decision then not to worry about correctness. And I have to thank Steve Kaufman for this. He says, don't worry about correctness. Nobody cares. They're more interested in what you're saying, not how and that was liberating. Okay. So, and I realized then this is the path. I didn't think about grammar, and I absorbed a lot from what I read, from the conversations I had, etc. So to summarize, there are these two different ways. They're really different, and we are backing the wrong horse. We're backing the grammar conscious learning horse. It's gradually changing. Let me bring up an unpleasant reality. There's a huge obstacle to this ever working. I have been working on this 40 years. My colleagues have put together an enormous amount of data that says this is a promising avenue that we really need to work on acquisition. It's not happening in classrooms. When I look at descriptions and catalogs, community college French class, it's grammar all the way. A few people are doing it. People in the audience know about it, etc. But it's not really doing that well when you think of all the research behind it. And there's a good reason. If what my colleagues and I have been saying is right, is an unbelievable economic disaster for the textbook publishing industry and for the testing industry. Trillions of dollars worldwide. And this is, I think, the main reason why it's not doing better. And I don't know the answer, just keep presenting the research, et cetera. Because all these textbooks are now obsolete. A couple are okay for reference if you're interested in grammar, but it's not the core, and the testing industry has to change.
Mhm.
Now that we're all depressed.
No, absolutely not. No.
Well, a lot of what you have been describing is sort of presented in that talk that you gave at Langfest, where in 2017 when we met, and I remember very distinctly you talked about the comprehension hypothesis versus the skill building hypothesis. So what the industry is really doing right now is a lot of skill building and then trying to apply the rules. And to me, that talk really presented these two hypotheses at odds, like one against the other. It's one or the other. Is that a correct assumption? Do you think that these two can be complementary? I always think about like really, really young kids learning naturally through acquisition, but as they grow old, as the brain develops more, they can learn more about the rules and apply them, sort of make it more efficient in terms of learning. I don't know. Is there some way that you see them as complementary?
That's a good question. I don't have a complete answer to it. I don't think they're complementary. I don't think they're balanced. It's way over on the side of acquisition. You could do a little bit of learning. Yes, even people like us, people like me, I have a PhD in grammar. Okay. I can't apply very many rules. It's hard. The conditions are really hard to overcome. In fact, impossible. You can't know more than a few rules, even if you have a PhD in grammar. You don't want to keep interrupting your speech to apply them. You don't do it accurately. So it's a little sideline. That's about it. And in writing, you can do a little better. Okay. But it's overwhelmingly acquisition, in my opinion. Sorry.
Yeah, but I totally agree. I mean, I catch myself repeating words because I said it in masculine instead of feminine, and then I go, oh, well, and that does interrupt.
Here's what happened to you, Tetu. This is really interesting. Alfie Kohn gave a talk on this in my hometown. It was really exciting. He talks about the undertow. We all feel the undertow of classical, traditional pedagogy. Like when you realize you got the gender wrong, you say, oh gosh, and you go back and correct it, et cetera, and destroy the conversation you're in. We are fighting this powerful undertow. Mm-hmm. The only way around it is truly compelling, comprehensible input, where the book you're reading or the conversation you're having is so interesting, you don't even think about grammar. You don't pay attention to it in the input. You don't worry about it when you're speaking. That's what we're looking for. That's why I'm so excited about pleasure reading as a way around it. Good stories, good novels. I had this interesting experience when I was in Mexico. I was reading two books at the same time. One book was Isabel Allende, a Zorro, which was a little too hard for me, okay? But Isabella Allende is so good a writer. Oh my gosh. You keep reading, you want to know what's going to happen next. It pulls you into the book, and I never stopped. At the same time, I was reading a graded reader in Spanish. And in the graded reader, the vocabulary is in the back of the book. I found myself compelled to look up every word unless I knew it 100%, just to make sure. That's the undertow.
Yeah.
The only solution I think that works for people like us is truly interesting, compelling input. Then we can do pure acquisition.
Wow. Yeah. Well, talking about disruption to the whole industry. Another common friend of ours, Oli Richards, sells a lot of language learning books through storytelling, and I think that's just genius. That could be, I don't know. What do you think? Is that something that
I think he's getting in the right direction? I have one of his books, Collections of Stories, etc. It's a very, very good idea. Mm-hmm. It's got to be easy to find, cheap, available, and totally interesting. And you have to realize that you don't have to know every word, but the story will help you. The story will push you along.
It doesn't sound like a very a super original idea that comes out of nowhere, but it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of it out there. So congratulations to Oli. I mean, shout out to Oli. All right. And meanwhile, our chat box has been just inundated. I don't know how we're gonna go through
Okay,
lots
let's
of
chat.
this, but lots of hellos, etc. But a few questions that have been sort of embedded within. That's lots of Happy New Year's. Let me try to sort of go through. I do have somebody. Anna Lynch says, "I feel more."
Let me warn you about something. Interrupt you.
Sure.
No matter what the question is, I will alter it to choose to so I can answer what I want to talk about. How's that?
If you are capable, please go on ahead.
Mhm.
Okay, but just a little comment from Anna. I found this to be very nice. Feel more and more motivated to learn more languages, even at my age.
Mhm.
Okay.
Great. I'm the same way.
Sherry Luke
Yeah.
says, no wonder most students aren't learning languages taught at school to keep it and be interested to use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Exactly.
there is one from Sylvia also. Can I just share it?
Sure. This one?
Oh, yeah, I think we shared it.
Okay. There you go. Now there's something you could develop on.
Yes, exactly. Chomsky is against tests. What is your position on this issue?
Well, of course, I agree with the living legend, Noam Chomsky. That's absolutely right. Tests are pushing people toward conscious learning. And what you get on tests, and even subject matter tests, is superficial knowledge that doesn't stay with you, that does not deepen your understanding.
Yeah.
Instead of tests, projects,
Yeah.
problem solving. This is the way to do it. No one will give you a test to get a PhD. There's no PhD examination. What you get, if you get a PhD, is a problem that you solve.
Mhm.
The path, overall path of how we get smarter, you find your interest, and we all have different interests. You try to solve problems in your area of interest. That's how we get smart, and then you remember everything. When you solve a problem important to you, the knowledge stays with you forever. It is totally in your mind forever. Okay. So, okay, give you a trivial example. You and your cousin go out for a walk and you run into a lottery place and you go in and you buy a ticket and you each put in $10 and she calls you up a week later and says, guess what? We won. I'm coming over. I'm going to give you $50, your share. So you say, great, hang up. And then your boyfriend says, who's on the phone? I don't know. I forgot. Oh, we won something. How much? I don't know. I don't remember. You don't forget things like that. Or great poetry. Do you love me or do you not? You told me once, but I forgot. The reason that's nonsense is you don't forget things like that. When you solve a problem that's important to you, you remember it forever.
Mhm.
Education doesn't do that. They make you memorize things that may not be important to you at all, and it's gone by the time you walk out the door.
And
Mhm.
did you not
I would-
mention? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Uther, you want to go? Go ahead.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I would like to focus a bit more on the acquisition of language because, I mean, many who follow us are raising their children abroad with several languages, with different languages that are not the languages of where they are living, for example. And talking about comprehensible input, and I know this is something that comes up every now and then in our Facebook groups and others. How can we help our children to build a vocabulary that is comprehensible for them, that it's enticing, that it's interesting for them? I know you don't like the word interesting, so I'm going to avoid it. So, but what I see very often from these parents is how can I provide that input that my child needs in order to function, in order to be able to not only speak with me, but also to develop the language when it is a minoritized language in the setting that they are. And I know that in other talks you mentioned also audiobooks, for example. We have one language in our family is Swiss German, Schweizerdeutsch, and it's not written. So the only thing that we could take as a resource were audiobooks. But what would you recommend now for families who are in this situation? Maybe there are audiobooks, there is no audio material. We mentioned storytelling. We mentioned maybe people who are providing this input. What would you recommend to these families?
Well, you've already mentioned it. You've said the magic word, stories,
Sorry.
otherwise known as literature,
Mhm.
otherwise known as fiction. I keep coming back to the
Fiction.
conclusion that stories are everything. It was Warwick Ellie who said a good supply of excellent storybooks is more important than a concern for higher standards, all these things. Well, that's it. And I'll tell you how I discovered this. This was about 15 years ago. I live about, 20 miles from Santa Monica, from the city of Los Angeles. And I regularly was driving into Santa Monica all the time in order to, of course, pump iron and see Arnold on Venice Beach
Goodness be-
and see my grandchildren. I'm still addicted to my grandchildren. And the drive on Pacific Coast Highway is so unbelievably boring. It's 40 minutes each way. Can't listen to the radio. It's all Donald Trump. There's no more good music. They've shifted that all to stations you have to pay for. I started going to the libraries and took out books on tape, storybooks, audiobooks, etc. I couldn't get them in other languages, and I couldn't get classics because I'm a big shot college professor. I can't be listening to best. I started listening to bestsellers.
Mhm.
They're good. I was stunned how good they are. The first one, of course, was Harry Potter. These books are so good that when you get home and you park your car, you sit in the car to hear the end of the chapter. I listen to historical novels, romance novels, medical novels, legal novels, John Grisham. I would say 80% of them were first class.
Mhm.
Stories are wonderful.
Yeah.
This is what we focus on.
Yeah.
Parents, kids love to hear stories. They love to be 90% of kids like mommy and daddy to tell them stories.
Yeah.
The 10% who don't like it, the parents don't like to tell them. So this is always the foundation. And the good news is that stories have a lot of content. Research done by my colleague, Jeff McQuillan, everyday literature contains academic words, contains technical words, and contains knowledge. Fiction gives you knowledge. People who read more or listen to stories more know more. They know more about everything from
Mhm.
fiction. I got to tell you about my cousin Evelyn. My cousin Evelyn was one of my mom's best friends. They had this wonderful niece-aunt relationship. Evelyn's 10 years older than I am about. And when I was a little kid, she was the big cousin. And I always went over to see her. Her husband, Marty, we always got along great. She played the violin. I played the piano, that kind of stuff. Evelyn told me not too long ago, that about a year ago, that she wanted to find out more about the law. She said her husband, who had passed away, had a law degree, and he knew so much about the law, and that helped him enormously in daily life. I'm going to take a class and get legal terminology. I said, Evelyn, just read John Grisham novels.
Yes.
I've sent her John Grisham novels. I paid for them, and it's tax deductible because I'm telling you about it. Okay.
Mhm.
She's thrilled with John Grisham. I listened to about 15 years ago. I was a chairman of a jury. I was the head of the jury because I was a college graduate. They thought I knew something. If I had read John Grisham, The Runaway Jury, before that, I would have been so much more effective. Justice would have been served had I known more about how these things operate.
Yeah.
Novels give you experiences you can never get in life. So that's my advice to parents. Stories, stories, stories. Home libraries full of stories, books on tape, books on video, whatever. This makes the world go around. And while we're there, let me put in a good word for what we call light literature, comic books.
Yes, exactly.
I think Spider-Man is one of the most important figures in all of literature anywhere. By the way, I want to give my credentials on comic books. Two things I want to tell you, showing off again. I am considered the world's #1 researcher in comic book research, largely because I'm the only researcher doing relationship of comic book reading comprehension in that area. And I won the #1 award possible. I had lunch with Stan Lee, the inventor of Spider-Man. He invited me. Can you imagine that? That's like hanging out with Noam Chomsky. All right. I'll tell you how it happened, and this is part of the presentation. He gave a talk at my university at USC. The comic book club invited him, and he was happy. The way he is in the cameos in the movies is just the way he is. He's a really interesting guy, pleasant. So we had this. I asked a question from the audience. I said, when is Peter Parker going to go to graduate school? He's a scientific genius. This is the alter ego of Spider-Man. He invented the web shooters and all that.
Yeah.
He said, let's talk. He said, after the lecture, I'd like to talk to you. He said, come up and have lunch with me. Ow! Well, I'll see if I can fit you in, right? So I went up, had lunch. I brought him all these notes about what it is to go to graduate school, how you do it, etc. I gave him the notes. We had this wonderful discussion. He included me in the comic strip in the LA Times. Not my name, but the professor looked like me. This is amazing. We talked about comic books the whole time. He told me his favorite character was the Silver Surfer, because the Silver Surfer is the most ethically tortured person in the entire Marvel universe. Comic books today are about superheroes with problems, daily problems, real problems, and how to get through the day, how to get through life, etc. They are riveting.
Yes.
There's nothing like a new graphic novel. So kids, yes, mommy and daddy, comic books. One more personal story. When I was in the 3rd grade, I was in the low reading group, which was really strange because I grew up middle class with lots of books around. When Dad found out, he brought home comic books. And he said, Stephen, here are comic books. Buy all you want. I will pay for them.
Mhm. Yeah.
That within a month, I was in the middle group, ultimately the top group. The rest is history. And I still think they're wonderful.
Yes, and there is now here in Belgium and France, there's a real culture for comic books anyway, so I'm in a good neighborhood here. And I would like to quote someone who just passed away in December, Bishop Desmond Tutu, right? One of his quotes
That's right.
is that one of the things that he's most grateful for his father was that he allowed him to read comics. And that was quoted many, many times. And I thought
He said, that's how I learned English, and that's how I got my love for reading.
Yes.
And by the way, Desmond Tutu is very interesting in this case as well. Comic books were attacked in a book called Seduction of the Innocent. Dr. Wertham, and said they leave you to lives of delinquency. Jim Trelease points out, look what happened. Desmond Tutu was a comic book reader, one of the most noble people who's ever lived,
Yes.
So.
And also Umberto Eco, I happen to know him, and he said also he liked to read comic books. But I would like also to focus, sorry, Tetsu, just a moment,
Go ahead.
on those families where maybe children have some learning disabilities or difficulties, and reiterate the fact that yes, literacy, as we are talking about, comprehensible input can come not only through books but also audiobooks or other kind of storytellings, like you just said. Because I had someone in my Facebook group ask me, can you please mention this fact in this context? So I'm doing it now.
Thank you. It's a great question. Good questions are defined as those I'm ready to answer. And I have a prepared answer. Therefore, it's a great question. Language delay and language problems. Most of the time, it simply means it comes more slowly. The process is the same. So the cure is the same. This idea, if you haven't learned to read by the time you're in 3rd grade, you're going to go to jail. No, none of that is true. You can learn to read anytime. A colleague of mine did some research. I'm forgetting her name. Gosh, it's shameful. But she looked at kids, grown-ups, who were classified as dyslexic when they were in school. Some of them didn't read until they were 10 years old, 12 years old. One of them didn't read until he was in his last year of high school, secondary school. They all became readers. They all became highly literate. They all became published. One of them was a Nobel Prize winner. They found an area that they really liked
Mhm.
and wanted to know more about. And this was the breakthrough, the compelling input, etc. So yes, there may be people with severe neurological problems who may need something different. So far, we haven't seen that. I would at least try, take your time, take it easy, read aloud, and find things the child's really interested in.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
That's great. That's great. And I want this to continue forever. But we
Just
are
starting.
we're running short on time, and the emails, the chat box continues to be filled with wonderful comments. But let me slide right into our last question that we have, and it's really still connected to what we have been talking about. Comic books. Whenever my kid wants a comic book, I buy the whole series, and
Yes.
they just go
Me
right through
too.
them in Japanese, in English,
Do the same.
As we say in
whatever.
French, haujila.
Yeah. So very happy that this is not wrong. I mean, this is not.
No.
But parents always have this fear. What if I let my kid watch TV the whole day? Is that bad? Comic books, online games. I sort of feel if there's comprehensible input, if it's challenging their language, I just don't put so much restriction on it. But what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, another good question, because when I'm prepared to answer, I can't speak for all games. I can't speak for all TV. As a parent, as a grandparent, I'm concerned about excessive violence, okay? And I'm concerned about excessive cleavage, about seductive people doing seductive things and all that. I am a parent too, and I'm concerned about these things. Having said that, many of the games are fantastic, no question. It began with my experience when my son, who's now a professor of mathematics, can you believe that? Got involved with Dungeons and Dragons back in the old days. And I went to the tournaments with him. And I found some very interesting people who were friendly and nice. It was really group work together, et cetera, solving group problems. And I got him a subscription to Dragon Magazine, which was about D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. The articles were amazing. For example, what kind of character do you want to have? You roll the dice, you have so many points. Do you want to give the character more strength, more agility? Do you want to give the character more wisdom? You have to balance all these things. And the obvious thing, stronger and faster, isn't always the right thing. What you want is someone close to the middle with a few tiny advantages. The games always go much better. It was a discussion of ethics placed in the framework of a game. So I don't know that all games are this good, but I have found several where I think it really helped my son, no question. And he still knows the guys he played games with. And my son's going on 50 and he's still hanging out with these people, et cetera. Highly intellectual. Same thing with TV. There are some wonderful things on TV. Always have been children's programs, adult programs, et cetera. So it's a question of what's on. Most of it is pretty good. Okay. The problem is for language acquisition, it's not all that efficient. You get it a lot quicker and faster and more new stuff in reading, but it's certainly not bad. And a lot of it's pretty good. And movies, oh my gosh, this is the genius of our worldwide culture today. The leaders, by the way, in television and movies, in my opinion, is Korean movies, Korean television. Where the so-called soap operas are just amazing.
Thank you.
When I'm on an international flight, I always go to the Korean movie, and it's stuff I don't usually watch because I like, car crashes and martial arts, people getting beaten up, and it's all about some family problem and absolutely gripping, absolutely wonderful. So some of the best literature now is on TV and in the movies.
Oh yeah, and they pick the best spots for commercial breaks and for the next show, and
By the way, speaking of commercial break, I'm going to give a brief commercial.
Okay.
My books and my articles are all
Oh,
available for free.
yes.
Free download. sdcrashen, my middle name David.com. My books are there. No one's going to buy them anyway. No one can afford them. Okay. The journals are now much too expensive. My friends and I all publish open access.
Mhm.
If you want to stay up with the research, find a blog or just follow the name Backseat Linguist. My former student, now my colleague, Jeff McQuillan, who summarizes the research beautifully and does very good articles, all open access. You want to know about heritage language, open access papers by Nushan Ashtari. You want to know about reading programs, Beniko Mason stuff is open access. This is the future.
Yeah.
This is our only
Absolutely.
chance. Otherwise, the profession is dead.
Yeah.
No one can afford the books. No one can afford the journals. I can't.
Yes.
Unless you are currently a professor at a Class A university with a terrific library and you have access to the library and you can take things out for free, you can't keep up with the work. And the articles are generally too long and too boring. So keep them short, keep them free. That's my plan for the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love it. Love
That's-
it. And Ute, I cut you off earlier.
No worry. No, I had to laugh because I got addicted to the Korean dramas as
Yes.
well. I'm trying to learn Korean with just watching the dramas.
Ute, I've always liked you. This is great.
Well,
It's wonderful.
there was
This
a
is,
period
it's
when
very good job.
Korean dramas was like everywhere in Asia. I mean,
For
all
good
the
reason.
countries
Yeah.
were watching those
Absolutely.
more than their own.
Yeah, they're so
dramas.
good.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm. Yeah, this is why I had to laugh, and I also wanted to thank you for putting all that you have written and many more things for free, because as we all three are on the same kind of wagon, that we want to make knowledge accessible for everyone, because everyone deserves to have this access. It shouldn't be separated
It's
by.
not because I'm a nice person. There's no other choice. If I were to write more books, I wouldn't make any money on it anyway. What's wrong with these people?
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
speaking of commercial break, I mean, it's precisely what Ute was saying. Our mission at RML is to bring cutting edge knowledge from folks like yourself to the end users. We want to make it accessible. We want to spread the message as far as possible without our end users having to read long and boring articles. Your words.
Well,
Someone once said, oh gosh, when you ask someone the time, you don't want a history of the wristwatch. These people, right?
absolutely.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, may I have permission? Is it time to start thinking about wrapping up? I can't go through everything. I want to thank everybody who's been with us throughout the hour. Many of you are still here. So
Yes.
shout out to everybody on our 3 platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you for your interaction. Thank you for your comments. Lots of them are thank yous to Steve. Your books are priceless. Your publications, thanks a million. Thank you, etc., 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 etc.
Yes. And yes, people who are saying like Ricky, I'm great believer in the benefits of corporate video games. Anna Lynch said something that I can relate to. I used to read Asterix and Obelix in English and German. This was actually, I got passionate about learning Latin by reading Asterix and Obelix in Latin.
That's
So
interesting, right?
That's another way. We have a lot of people who have, yes, just thank you so much for being here and for talking about this topic and for being so open, and yes,
Okay.
thank you. Kind.
So-
I said kind.
So,
Yes.
Before I jump into our next session, I might be opening a can of worms, so to speak. Here, you talked about your son, and I sort of regret, why didn't I think of this question before? But what have you done specifically to raise him in to speak a second language or third language, if that was even in the plans when you were raising your
No,
your
it was
child?
never in the plans. I didn't do much about it. But the good thing about both my children is they understand my theory.
Okay.
My daughter, her husband's family is from Denmark, his mother's from Denmark, she's picked up a fair amount of Danish this way. She can speak to family, etc. My son in mathematics certainly has to know French, and his French is good. He gets along fine, and both used exactly the methods, and it works.
Mm-hmm. It does.
They've done very well. Language is not a huge part of their lives, but when it's there, they know how to do it. That's all I can ask for.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes. I also acquired Dutch this way, and Swiss German anyways.
Oh.
And it appears also a little bit of Norwegian, but because I understood more than I thought, like I said before. Sometimes we understand more by listening to someone in the train, and you say, well, what language is that? And then you find out it's a completely different language of those that you know, but they have something in common. It makes you understand.
Does help.
And
I want to leave you with one powerful piece of advice.
Please.
Yes, 2 years of experience. What's the most important sentence to learn in another language? Are you ready?
Dos cervezas, por favor. Is that...
No.
It's not the cerveza.
Mi amigo va pagar. My friend will pay.
You pay.
Mon ami va payer. Mein Freund wird bezahlen. Okay.
Wonderful. That is true wisdom for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you.
Rita, I talked way too much today.
Not at all.
Can I share one funny comment about this last sentence? There is Ricky who said, oh, sorry. No, it's not. It's this one. ¿Dónde es la biblioteca?
Ah,
that's the good one for our discussion today.
for us, you bet.
Okay. So unfortunately, we're going to have to move forward 2 weeks later specifically. Let me put up our little ad for our next session. Hang on, what am I doing here? Let me put this on presentation. We're having some
finish the same way we started.
and it doesn't seem like it's working. Wow, that's good.
Okay, we have Murphy in the room. That's nice.
Okay.
But maybe we can just mention the person, or
what am I doing?
Tetsu, come back.
Come back. Fine. Don't you worry.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. It's fine.
None of this is working.
No worries.
Hang on.
It was
Are you
just
hearing the music like I am?
No, we don't hear music.
Good.
Tetsu,
It's fine. It's fine, Tetsu.
Let me put it up,
just.
It's coming up. Hang on. Let me do this one more time.
You have one more try.
Okay.
One last try. Okay. Here it is.
Yes.
Okay. So please.
Wow. Thank you, Tetsu. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I didn't speak too much during. I had so many questions, but we would have been here for 3 hours had I asked them all. And then Ute and Tetsu had some fantastic questions. I also wanted to thank you so much for making your kind of showing the way for other researchers and making your books and articles free for readers. It is so important. So in 2 weeks' time, we will have another interesting session on the topic of bilingualism in babies. We have Dr. Krista Byers-Heinlein, who is a professor of psychology at Concordia University, where she holds the Concordia University Research Chair in Bilingualism and Open Science and directs the Concordia Infant Research Lab. Her research focuses on infants and children who grow up in bilingual environments, and she has made discoveries about how very young bilinguals keep their languages separate and how children are able to learn or learn words in two languages. She has authored many peer-reviewed articles on early bilinguals in different journals, and in 2018 she published her book entitled The Listening Bilingual: Speech Perception, Comprehension and Bilingualism. It promises to be another interesting episode, so hope you can join us on January the 18th at the same time as usual, 1 p.m. New York, 6 p.m. London and 7 p.m. Paris.
Thank you,
Thank
Rita,
you.
for the presentation. Bilingualism in babies. Very, very, very interesting period in life where the brain is just expanding like crazy. So don't miss it in 2 weeks. Thank you again, Steve. Thank you so much. It was an
you very much.
amazing session. We've had so many interactions in the chat. We're going to have to go back and go
Yes.
through those
Yes.
and
Yes.
try to answer to some of the questions and comments that's come up. But your time is precious. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
A pleasure.
Okay.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye bye, everybody.
Grazie mille.
Bye.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye.
Tot de volgende
Hey,
keer.
hey. Nou, dank aan de